Now I call this meeting of the Winthrop School Board to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. So much stuff. Quick attendance. Catherine.
Present.
Okay. Tim.
Present.
Ivy.
Present.
Alicia. Present. David.
Present.
Joseph.
Present.
Okay, and me. We are all here. All right. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
No adjustments this evening.
All right, and I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the Winthrop School Board meeting of September 20th, 2023, as written or with corrections.
So moved.
Seconded. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? 5-0. All right, we are moving on to the public comment section. And before we begin that, I do just want to have a quick conversation because we have significantly more people attending by Zoom and in person today than we normally do about what happens during public comments. We do have a policy that we follow for this section. It is BEDH. The basic gist of this that I want to go over with us today is that there are a few things that can be talked about during public meetings and a few things that can't be talked about. So the first thing to keep in mind is that if you hear that somebody else has already said what you were going to say, please don't stand up and just reiterate the same thing. Know that we've heard the message. When you do stand up to give a comment, we ask that you come over to the podium and use the wireless mic. Please introduce yourself before you start talking. Any public comments are addressed to me. If any of the board members do have questions, they will ask me if they can ask them before they just ask questions of you. Otherwise, if they don't have any questions, we will listen and take notes, and then potentially reach out to you to ask further questions at a later date and time and determine if something needs to be added to the agenda or not. There is one kind of really important thing that I want to make sure everyone is aware of, and this is letter H in this policy that says, no complaints or allegations will be allowed at the school committee meetings concerning any person employed by the school system or against particular students. Personnel matters or complaints concerning students or staff issues will not be considered in a public meeting, but will be referred through the established policies and procedures. So if there is something that you want to speak about that is about the way that you feel that a situation with your child or with a staff member has been handled, that's not something that can come before us during public comment. You can speak with myself or Jim or with the administrator, and then if you feel that things are not being handled in the way that need to be handled, let us know and we will elevate the need for a different discussion. But those types of things are not handled during public session. So with that said, if anybody has a comment that they would like to address to the committee, feel free to come over to the podium and introduce yourself. And we will also talk, take turns going between people here in the off building and on Zoom. So the public comment section is open. Yes, please. We're using the mic because the camera and the recording system doesn't pick up general voices.
My name is Valerie Pomelo. I have two daughters, Adriana and Mark Pomelo, that are in the Winthrop school system. lived in Winthrop for the past 10 years and have two daughters, 14 and 7. I have been involved in the Winthrop cheering for the last 9 years, and I'm entering my 6th year into coaching the youth program here. Before moving here, I cheered in Augusta from kindergarten to the end of my senior year. I also coached the local rec program, including the competition team. I'm here today as I finally got a small toe in the door to bring back cheerleading into our school system. Myself and others in the community have tried to get this program back for a few years and have been given excuses of why it hasn't happened. I am here to hopefully move forward in this process in bringing cheering back to fall sports and winter sports in our program. I currently have 26 kids in my youth program, and through the years, the girls that have gotten out have nowhere to go. With Monmouth now losing cheerleading, there is simply nowhere for our kids to go that want to continue it through middle school and high school until I got middle school cheerleading this year. But with having about 6 girls going into 7th and 8th and 9th grade, they have nowhere to go as far as high school cheerleading. So I'm here to hopefully pass on the message that we can get this started and to give the opportunity for all of the amazing kids in our youth program to move forward, as cheerleading brings fundamentals to kids, brings joy to our community, boosts morale, and is a pastime that continues to grow today. I can also relay you the local news that just shared Bess Lonsky's one cheerleader with the full backing of their school, with their program, and their single cheerleader. Overall, my youth cheerleaders come back year after year, but again, have nowhere to go for the high school program. So I come here today in hopes that you will strongly agree that our community and our youth need to bring cheering back with full support in the athletic department. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Are there any public comments on Zoom? You don't see it. Are there any other comments here in the building?
Hi, my name is Derek Perret, and I am 14. I am a freshman at Monmouth Academy. Though I didn't cheer for very long in elementary school, cheer was the only sport or activity that I ever showed true interest in. Doing cheer my 5th grade year was amazing. I created bonds with people and I put genuine dedication into it. I did the summer camp in my 6th grade year, but the virus quickly ended the idea of cheering in the fall. Though the middle school is now allowed to cheer, it wasn't allowed until after the point of being able to join. That means I haven't been able to cheer since 5th grade. Having high school cheer would let me partake in something that I've had an interest in since I was the same age as the Pee Wee and youth cheerleaders.
Thank you very much, Derek. Okay, I'm still not seeing any public comments on the Zoom. I did get emails from a few parents with their support, and I'm sharing that information with Jim to be shared with Joel as well. Any other public comments, whether it's about cheering or about something else? Sure.
Hello, my name is Skip Moody. I'm from Winthrop, longtime resident. My son actually went through the program here in the Winthrop schools. I'm currently the vice president of the Rambler Youth Football Association and been involved with the program for a while, and Chris Levine is the president. And we're actually just here in showing of support because we've seen the program increase and increase and increase over the years. And it's built into a really nice, large program at this time. They work very hard and they take it very serious, and we're here to support that.
Thank you, Skip. Any other comments regarding cheering or anything else before we move on? One more.
Hi, my name is Adrina Kamala, and I'm 14 and I go to Visual Arts Academy. And the school I go to doesn't offer sports, so we have to go to our local school district and ask for that. But the only sport I'm interested in is cheer, and the high school doesn't have that. So I think it'd be very beneficial for us to have cheer, and it would just help with school spirit and just in general.
Thank you. Thank you, you did a good job.
Thank you.
Okay. Still nobody with questions on Zoom or comments? Does everybody feel that they have said what they need to say? Okay, you're all set? Alrighty. We will move on to reports with the superintendent's report, please.
Thank you. My report was submitted with packet. It will be part of the public document. I do want to start by reviewing the September financial report, and there's some things that may raise some concern, and so I want to address that. First of all, system administration, well, we're 25% through the fiscal year, so you'd expect us to have about 75% in all the categories, and all of them except for 3 are in that range. School board, I'm sorry, not school board. Sorry, I'm the wrong thing. System administration and school administration are slightly higher expenditures, so they're at 60 whatever and 60 something. I've talked to people. Transportation doesn't surprise me because transportation went up, but I think they're fine. I don't have any real concerns about where those are going to end up. And you can see that our 2 biggest lines, Articles 1 and Article 2, are very robust. So they are in good shape. So the other one is transportation, and we are expecting some reimbursements for transportation. I'm sorry, I know I keep thinking transportation is the wrong thing. Debt service. Debt service has been paid, and so that's, I don't know why there's that much left. I would expect it all to be gone. So we have still, 30-something% left in there. But that's not unusual for some of those things that are once a year to be paid, and then it's all gone, and it should stay about that for the remainder of the year. And we may get some reimbursement in that area as well. So otherwise, it's all in pretty good shape, and overall, it's well over the 75% mark. So overall, it's in really good shape. Where overall, it's 82.8%.
Jim, I am going to ask again if we can please have the percentage of the school year remaining somewhere on this form. I understand that it can't be computer generated, but if it can be handwritten on and scanned in or some other way so that we're not having to do the math ourselves to find out whether these numbers are alarming or not, it would be really important. Or in your superintendent report or something so that we can have that information.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's why I always start with that, but yes, you want it on here, that's fine.
Yeah, that way when we're looking at it before the meeting, we are able to formulate any questions.
Paul is good.
That way if we are looking at it before the meeting, we are able to formulate any questions that we might have.
Okay, continue. Unless there are other questions on the financial report, I'll continue. I want you to be aware that next Monday, not next Monday, the 30th, we are holding a community forum on Monday, October 30th in the High School Performing Arts Center starting at 7. It will be done at least by 8:30, and it's basically to cover 2 points. And the first is to discuss, and this report was written last week sometime, so first is to discuss communication between the community and the schools, including the role of the superintendent and the school board. And second, and this is where, in full disclosure, Joel came to see me to say that he's been asked by the town council to have a forum to discuss the turf field, proper use, and guidelines and those types of things that the general public needs to know about using the, once we get the track completed, and people are welcome to use it, then what those guidelines would look like. And so I hope that will be a larger crowd than the other forums that I've held on various topics, and so I asked him if I could jump in with him and talk about this issue about communication, and he said yes, so we will do that. So that's on the 30th, 7 o'clock, Performing Arts Center. There is something that'll be in the an art that'll be in the advertiser this weekend and next weekend. So it'll be in 2 weekends in a row to let the public know about that. So we only have one appointee tonight. That's Caleb Dellier. He's the high school alternative education Ed Tech 3, and he's running that program up there. And that's all I have.
Any questions for Jim? Okay. School board chair report, I don't have a lot to share. Alicia and I were able to go to the turf field official opening, which was pretty impressive. There was a nice turnout, a couple different teams worth of folks were there. A lot of the major contributors to the project were there as well. Charlie Schumann showed up and was able to say a couple things. There was a nice talk about the history of that field and complex, why it's named the way that it's named, why it was named what it was named, which was really cool. And it was nice to be there. The field felt a lot squishier than I expected it to feel under my feet. I've never been on a turf field before. I did meet with Jolene last month, last month, and we went over the grade school handbooks for editing, and I provided her with my suggestions so that she could either run with them or not and get those published and out. So the middle school and the grade school are done. I'll touch base with you, Jay, and see if you know what you want to do there. We will be talking later today about the board self-evaluation. I did bring last year's evaluation with me so that we can discuss if we want to use that same form or if we want to use something different this year. The policy does allow us to do whatever we want as long as we're addressing specific topics. So we'll discuss that kind of in depth in a little while. Are there any questions? Okay. Committee reports. Finance.
We did not meet.
Policy, any report at this point not related to what we'll discuss later in the agenda? No report. Okay, negotiations.
Do we have a meeting for our next meeting, or can we make sure we talk, the three of us talk to set our next meeting? Thank you.
We don't have a schedule.
So you will schedule before the end of, okay.
And I'm going to put it in the minutes if that's okay with everybody.
That'd be great if you could put that information in the minutes, thank you. Negotiations, we are still waiting to start our first meeting with the teachers. So that has not moved forward yet. It's a new negotiating team. The folks that are on the team have not been negotiators before, so they're kind of figuring out before we start what that needs to look like for them so that things can go as successfully as possible, which makes an awful lot of sense to me, that they don't just come in blind and not know what they need to do. The administrator reports are attached, so we'll go through them one at a time. Starting with Jolene and Debbie with the grade school. This is on page, I think, 8 of the packet. Yeah, okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Jolene and Debbie? I do. Two things. One is, if you have not, as a board member, been in to see the library, I really strongly urge you to do that. Teresa has done an amazing job of relocating things, setting things up differently, changing the furniture so that it's more grade school child friendly instead of adult friendly. The colors are great, the seats are pretty cool. And she has a couple nice little pull-out areas for places to sit and read, to do some read alouds, but also to do things that aren't related to reading in case a kiddo came in and didn't bring their book back and they can't take out another book. So that's really cool. So if you haven't had the chance, I would suggest try to get in. And then my only other thing for you, Jolene, is your last paragraph about the salad bar being back at the grade school, I'm sure they are very excited about that. I know that's one of Will's favorite things at the middle school, so I can only imagine that the grade school kids are super excited about that. Okay, moving on to the middle school and Lori. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Lori? I do. I want to thank you for the blast reminder about the early dismissal and specifically what time it would begin so that I could tell my mother what time to come and get Will today. That was really, really helpful. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And then I'll follow up with Amy about the conferences.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Moving on to the high school, this is page 10 and 11. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Jay?
I do. I had actually reached out to Jim after attending the CATC on the advisory board, and I had asked for the numbers. I'm actually curious if you have the numbers of each spot that we have, Winthrop specifically, per student. I don't know if that, does that make sense? So Winthrop has allotted so many slots for the CATC program. I was kind of curious how many spots we've used. I see this, but how many potential spots we have as well.
And Jay will be talking about CATC in depth as the next agenda point, so maybe hold off on answering that one right now. But it's a good thing to, if you have that information to share. Anybody else have anything for Jay? Okay. Moving on to the special education report. Is Sue on?
She is.
Sue is on Zoom. Oh, I see her face. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Sue? I do. Hey, Sue. Hi. Can you tell me in the special education enrollment section from September 1st, can you tell me what the per school distribution is, even just on a percentage basis?
Not off the top of my head, but I can get that for you for sure.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate it. And then I did have a question about the Sounds Sensible Spire conferences. Was it two separate conferences or the same information just by two different presenters?
Well, let me pull up my report real quick because I want to make sure I have the information. I want to say it's the same conference. So we had Sound Sensible, there's a presenter that does Sound Sensible. And then Spire is probably the same person, so they both were through the main special ed directors organization. So it was the same company that put them on, whether it was the same actual presenter, I'm not 100% positive.
That's okay, that's okay. That was the only question I had. Anybody else have anything for Sue before she, nope, you can go back on mute, thank you. For the Director of Teaching and Learning, and Megan is on the Zoom, if anybody has any questions for her. I don't. I think you're good, you're safe there, Megan. The next report is from Josh for transportation. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Josh? He's not on the Zoom, but Jim can get that information to him if anybody has anything they would like to ask. I guess the only question that I had was in the third paragraph talking about the electric buses. He said 2 of the buses are being analyzed by Lion Electrics for body leakage. Are those the same 2 buses that are at the glass place?
They're not there anymore. They're not there anymore, but yes, they're the same too.
Okay.
We're actually, if I can just expand on it, we're actually checking with Lion to see, we incurred some additional costs because those buses weren't ready for us, and so we're seeking some reimbursement from Lion. I don't know if it's possible, but we just want you to be aware that we are seeking reimbursement.
Thank you. Okay, the next is maintenance and sports from Joel. He is not here today. He's at a couple games tonight, but again, Jim can get some questions to him if anybody has anything that they would like to share. I do want to point out to people who are here, There is a piece of Joel's, I'm just trying to find it, report regarding cheering. The plan at this point is to complete the conversation with Jay about cheering at the high school and then bring it to the committee to be put on the agenda. So it is on the radar. They are having those discussions. I think from what I have understood, the hard part at this point is that fall sports is a really, really busy time to be able to have those conversations that would be meaningful. So that may not happen until the end of the fall sports season as far as that conversation coming to the board is concerned. There are a few places during, and I just want to make sure that this is out there for folks who are on the Zoom and here in person who maybe have not had a chance to read this. There are a couple instances where Joel pulled out for us that there are going to be some pretty big expenses coming up within the next year or so that will need to be budgeted for that haven't been yet, including things like the roof and carpet between the old part of the grade school and the new part of the grade school. And that will be almost $130,000 that we'll need to be able to find funding for. And then, again, they're working on the fire suppression project. Phase 1 is nearly complete, and then we'll move into phase 2. And there may be some added expenses related to that you'll need to make sure that you're aware of as the next budget building process comes into play, okay? All right, the next report is nutrition. Are there any questions? This is Kate, right?
Sam.
Sam, thank you.
Did you have anything?
No, she didn't. So Sam gave us a nice report. She's bringing tacos back to the grade school at some point, which I think the kids will really love. I love that she made sure she talked about how important the salad bar is, not just for getting food, but for the little kids using their fine motor skills, which is just another great way to get that work in. Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Sam that Jim can get to her? Okay. The next is technology, and we do have Paul here in the front row, so if anybody has any questions or comments for Paul, we can definitely have him talk to us. I did have a question for you, Paul, about the bus shed portion and the Wi-Fi. Does this statement about the hotspot not providing adequate Wi-Fi coverage, does that mean that it didn't go from the shed to each of the parked buses, or was it some other kind of an issue?
I'm not really sure. That was my assumption too. I didn't ask Josh for clarification. The only thing I replied to him was to ask what was the footage in the area that we want the coverage for, because that will determine what the other options are possible, right, and the costs involved, right?
Thank you, Paul.
Yep.
And then you went to a conference last week.
I did indeed, last Thursday and Friday. Yep.
Tell me what you learned about AI and cybersecurity that would be interesting to the board.
Well, cybersecurity, there are bad people out there, very bad people out there and doing very bad things. So we want to try to do our due diligence to prevent that from happening. And so I'm initiating kind of the first fundamental steps as I outlined here in my report, and that's consistent with best practice that has been talked about it. I attended many sessions from CISA, which is it's a federal, I can't remember the acronym right off the top, but cybersecurity arm of Homeland Security, right? And so I'm looking into enrolling into a vulnerability scan service that they provide. They look at our public facing and look for vulnerabilities and report back and make recommendation for remediation for that. Two-factor authentication requiring developing an incident response plan. This is over the course of this year through roll those out, after which it will appear to this body for approval. Creating a complete and thorough tech inventory. And we need to look into enrolling a ransomware insurance program. To my knowledge, I don't think we are participating in one. It's run by MSMA, right? So that's kind of a conglomerate, kind of a consortium of that we can participate in. In terms of artificial intelligence, well, I attended a very informative session. It had a Canva slide presentation, and I would like to meet with Megan at some point and share with her those resources and find out how best we can share that out to faculty as needed.
And then before you sit down, I did have one more question for you. In your cybersecurity portion, for those of you following along on paper, it's on page 21. You talk about the requiring the two-factor authentication. Is that just for teachers, or how will that work for students? I know, like, for work, I do it through my cell phone, but a lot of students don't have that.
Right, so the initial rollout would be, first of all, the admin level, first and foremost, people who have the highest level of access, in terms of security and privilege and so on. And then and the second phase would be include instructional staff and support staff. With regard to students, that would not be on the plan at this time.
Okay.
For this year.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments for Paul? You can sit down. Thank you, Paul.
You're very welcome.
All right, that is the end of the administrator reports. So moving on to Jay and the CATSI update, please.
Hello, everyone. So if you take a look at my monthly report, I figured it was the best vehicle to include a table with some of the CASI data for you folks to review before the meeting. And I tried to provide, I think, what you folks had asked for. Certainly, I'll answer any questions that you have. So just so folks know, similar to what Alicia had said, that I attend monthly CATSI meetings with the sending school principals. We had our first meeting last Thursday in the morning, and I was provided with some data, so it was very timely. This particular data that I provided you folks with was the programs that our current 23-24 students, juniors and seniors, are involved in, which programs they're in. Number of juniors, which we have 12, number of seniors, which we have 6, for 18 total students involved this year at CATSI. And that number is a little bit lower than it was last year. I attribute that to a couple of things. One, we have a very small senior class this year at 36 kids, which I think is a big part of it. Secondly, I believe that CATSI really struggled late in the summer. They lost their law enforcement instructor and they lost their electrical instructor. Two pretty popular programs at CATSI, or at any technical center across the state. We did have a number of kids enrolled in both of those programs that kind of went scrambling at the end of the summer in August, not knowing that now they've hired 2 instructors. One of them has just been brought on full time They sort of had band-aided it, and they brought somebody back who had retired to cover the law enforcement piece. But now they do have 2 full-time folks in those programs. But what happened was, kids not knowing, they sort of bailed. So that kind of hurt our overall numbers. We offered it back to them once those programs came back online, but you were talking about late September. By that time, 16, 17-year-old student in a routine, comfortable in their schedule, back in the groove of school, didn't really take us up on it. So, I think that sort of curbed maybe 4 or 5 kiddos that would have been in those 2 programs overall, which is unfortunate, but I cut out. Sorry. Did I break it?
Just speak loud. Speak loudly.
I just changed the batteries in that, so
Can you come use David's microphone?
Thanks, David. So those are the greatest factors, I think, that relate to our numbers being a little bit low this year. And you had asked a really good question. I think the general rule of thumb about how many slots are we allowed in each program is around 2 or 3. But that is, I'm finding, not really that ironclad. In other words, if we have a student or 4 students who are really, have a strong application, that they'll get in. And inevitably, for the first 3 weeks of the school year, we were getting updates from Stephanie Turgeon, who was the counselor at CATSI, about the openings that they had. And really on a first come, first served basis. So we always had the opportunity to send more kids to CATSI, those programs, if they were interested to do that. So I really think that 2 or 3 number is the baseline. But if we had a kid on the cusp that really wanted to get into a program, I bet you I could get them into the program up there.
so it's sort of like a guarantee.
Yeah. Yep. And I don't know if you folks want to know all the programs that they have. We have kids involved in quite a few of them. Some of the ones that we don't have kids in this year, computer-aided drafting, they have vet technology, culinary, which I'm surprised we don't have a kiddo in this year. Another one is Business Academy, and that's the only one that they will accept kids halfway through the year. Every other program is a full year. And I think that's it. Vet Tech, Culinary, and Business Academy would be the 3 that CATSI offers that we do not have kids in this year. We have in the past. The other thing we talked about on Thursday that I really like about Mr. Gannon and Stephanie Turgeon is not just about retention, but about promotion of the programs. And what I proposed, and we're doing this next week, is we have a couple of kids that I think is going to be hooked to keep them in school. So sophomores, I'm getting them on the CATSI bus to tour some programs next week. And they're very open to that, and doing that more and doing that sooner. In the wintertime, January, February, we'll start planning the recruitment for next year's CATSI students, so rising juniors, so this year's sophomores, and retaining our current juniors who will be seniors. So it's sort of a 3 or 4 step process where CATSI comes to our school, does a presentation to sophomores and juniors about programs available. Then kids select 2 or 3 that they're interested in. They get sent information and videos that they can watch. And then they narrow that down to 1 or 2, get on the bus and go do some tours. They can do that a couple of times if they want to. And at that point, we're just about in the middle of signing up for classes, and that's where we get kids on board. They can go visit a second time, and typically at that point they commit. Now, a lot of kids do change their schedules over the summer. You know, I joke that sometimes that there have been kids that, you know, change their schedules more from August to September than I changed my socks in a year. It was a lot. And some of them did drop CATSI or move programs for one reason or another. Just, you know, a change in interest or a change in what was offering for college classes or what have you. But I think we have a good group of people that we work with at CATSI that not only work on promoting their programs, but retention. And also they're very open with the principals about ideas on how to make things better. So, you know, I'm really excited about CATSI programs. My oldest son is a senior at EL, and he is at Lewiston Regional Technical Center in the automotive program, and he absolutely loves it. So it's been, you know, as a dad, it's been a huge part of my life too, and a huge hook for my own child to be interested in school, because he hasn't always been that interested in school. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those for you.
Any other questions for Jay before he goes back to his seat? You're good. Thank you very much, I appreciate it. Okay, the next presenter is Ms. Burgess, who will talk to us about the MATRIC program. She's going to bring her laptop over near David and sit and use his microphone. And she does have a presentation that will be cast up behind me, but we also have a copy of it in our packets. Is that better?
Yep.
Can't play
Do I just press the button? Yep, just leave it pressed.
So I'm Melissa Burgess. I am the special ed teacher in the high school in the Functional Life Skills program. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So I applied for a grant, probably close to late spring, early summer, for an agency grant for transition program. And I was awarded preliminarily $127,000. We are still in contract negotiations, so I know that I will at least get 127. I can put in for more, but we'll see. I will, as part of the grant, I have to document and track progress on a monthly basis. I'm going to be working with Sue, Jim, Jay, and partnering in the partnering schools administrators this year as a pilot program. The schools that we're going to be working with are RSU2 and Maranico. The grant money does run out in August of 2024, and I cannot carry over any of the funds. And this is to build a regionalized transition program for students that have IEPs, at risk for not graduating, and struggling learners. Again, I'm going to be working with Marina Cook and RSU2. Through this grant, I can also provide professional development for staff. It's going to be transition related. Most of it will be funded through the grant and programs that are available to the state. Providing resources for families, parent information nights, provide families with clear timelines, and help foster the team concepts between families, educators, and administrators. Okay. So the transition planning, and these are just some important phrases. So transition planning is required for all high school students that have IEPs, starting their 9th grade year. It serves as a guide to what the students are planning to become after high school and the steps that they need to take to get there. Employment, living, and community experiences are tracked through the 4 years plus that they are in school. And students working with students from grades 9 through 12 who have IEPs, and that's what the program's going to encompass. Working with community and state agencies to provide services when and where applicable, and working with the community members and local businesses to help provide work-based learning experiences, and then to create a more inclusive learning environment for students and a general and special education students learning in the same learning environment with their interest peers, grows stronger natural support systems and friendships. Working with families and advocacy groups to help educate parents, and then including middle school age children in the career exploration process, so they're exposed to more careers and they're in transition into the high school more seamless. And here are just some stats. I don't want to bore the public with why we need a transition program, but here are some important data facts as to why we need them. Just read a couple. Some more young adults with disabilities live with their parents, relatives, or legal guardians after high school than the case for youth without disabilities. And then research has shown that individuals who have had systematic transition planning and community-based vocational training activities during their middle and high school years are better prepared for the demands of the workplace. And then they just have better graduation rates and competitive employment opportunities. And so stakeholders, is anyone involved in the student's process of transition, and listed here are just a small sample of what the stakeholders would be involved. So we're talking about the structure of the program, and it's going to be centered at the high school in my classroom. This other school districts that we're hoping will be sending students to us are Moran, Cook, and RSU2. I am meeting with the special ed directors and the superintendents on October 31st to discuss some of the nitty-gritty pieces, this one being one of them, how they're going to get to high school, and then who will be teaching it. I will be teaching it. I'll be teaching the concepts of the program to foster independence in the transition process. So if staff are needed, the sending schools will provide a staff person for them. What will be taught? Career and life readiness and social skills. And what that looks like is having them do interest inventories and having them explore those interests by going out to the community and learning interpersonal communication with their employer
So let's see, how many students will be served? Again, that will be discussed during that meeting. It was talked about maybe having 2 sessions, one in the AM, one in the PM. If that's possible, then we could serve more students. Who will be helping with the community aspect of the program, which would be vocational rehabilitation and Goodwill, who currently is in our high school, and they do what they call a boot camp, which allows the students to have those work-based learning experiences and have them be paid. So it's a really great program. My students have benefited from those experiences, and excited to continue on with that. Community integration, work-based learning experience, that's what WPLE is, will try to be done during the school day and be transported by the serving school if they are present during that school period. And then any community outing that is part of the program will be done through the serving school as well. So the cost and resources. Transportation to and from school will be from the sending schools, and then the staff for those if support staff is needed. The serving schools will provide transportation to the work-based learning experiences and staff for WHH students who need support. Resources from the sending school would be collaboration with the other educators and administrators, parents and community members. If we have common curriculum, using common curriculum, and access to professional development resources in transition. And resources from our serving school, which is pretty similar to the sending schools. Let's see, where I see the program in 3 to 5 years, for students who are juniors and seniors, having this program centered at CATSI, it would be the modified version of the old Diversified Occupations program. And then so having it there, we'd be able to create more natural supports within the student's chosen career path. And again, you're building those natural relationships between the general population and the special ed population. And more financial and professional resources available to them. And they can learn to be better self-advocates, which is going to be very important. Students that are in the middle school through 10th grade will have more career exploration opportunities and have stronger self-advocacy and self-determination skills.
Does anybody have any questions for Melissa? Yes, I do. Do you have an estimated number of students who you'll be able to serve with $125 or whatever it was, $27,000?
So it would be, we talked about having maybe 12 per section. Would probably be our cap. So if we could have them in 2 separate sessions, then it would be 24.
Okay. And I see it says working with Marina Cook and RSC2. Does that include the Winthrop students?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, so it would be Winthrop and RSU2, which would incorporate Monmouth and Albedale and Marina Cook.
Okay. Thank you. Just check my notes. And will they still meet graduation requirements and earn a diploma as well? Okay. Thank you.
Is this one-time money that needs to be spent before the end of next August? Okay. And what types of things will you be doing with this money?
So curriculum is going to take up most of it. And I have put in for professional development and put in for furniture and transportation.
Great. And this group of folks that you'll be working with, these are the same kids that went to the Harvest Moon to pick apples and do the leaf and bee?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I think I
had some clarifying questions. So is this much like Kelly? So is this the population, the whole population you work with in the functional life skills program? And that whole population will have access to the work that you're doing? Is it a subset?
Yes, so pilot-wise, we're probably going to center having it be life skills with the understanding that next year we want to broaden it to resource and struggling learners, those who are kind of, hopefully we can catch them before they drop out. So, and I've have resources through adult ed, and all the stakeholders that are listed, I have been in contact with probably 90% of them. So we are starting a working relationship.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, is this just a one-time grant, or are you able to apply for the following years after this?
So there are going to be more grants coming through, and I will definitely be applying for those. Any sources of funding that can keep a program running, I'll be looking into those.
So while you're waiting for the contracting to be done, you're providing these types of services already for Winthrop students and just not for RSU2 and Marana Cook, right?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
I am, with information and parent nights that we're sending, I am reaching out to them, inviting them to come. But as far as educating them, it's just my core group.
Okay,
currently.
I did have another question. When you refer to the interagency, is that making and taking advantage of the state programming that's out there and connecting all
Yes.
the dots?
So, yes.
Okay.
So that would be working with OATS. It's a
Office of
Yes.
Adults.
Thank you. And working with other agencies that are, that you can access, like CWIX, which is a benefits counseling program, and that's all free. Working with adult ed and working with Goodwill Industries, and the Department of Urban Development, and a couple other agencies that are centered for disabilities.
I see on your potential stakeholders list that you have the Department of Labor apprenticeship. Are you also looking at the career centers through the Department of Labor too?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And I myself have been trained through ACRE training, so that's kind of like a job coaching as well. So I actually learned a lot through that training, different benefits and Social Security and what different programs even within Social Security that maybe the lay people don't have access to. So.
Excellent. Tim, any questions? Okay. Joe and David, do either of you have any questions? All right. Thank you so much, Melissa. We appreciate it.
Stop sharing your screen, please. Quick stop sharing. The red button.
Thank you. Moving on to old business, I will entertain a motion to approve the following policies or exhibits for second reading. IKF, graduation requirements, JJIBC, relations with booster groups, JLCD, administration of medication to students, IJJ, instructional and library media related selection, IJJE, challenge of materials form, BEDF, voting method, JLCDA, medical marijuana use in school, and JJI, philosophy of athletics.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, we will go through each of these separately, kind of to see if there was anything that has changed since first reading before we take a vote on accepting them as second reading. So starting with IKF, the graduation requirements. Any changes since first reading?
So, so the changes since first reading, I think we finalize some language where we're trying to integrate the graduation requirement of community service hours into the schedule of the calendar day at Winthrop. So I think we tweaked the language a little bit, no essential language except for agreeing that we wanted to communicate that the community service hours can be made up during the school opportunities, and that's not exclusive. Students can also do community service outside the school day, so balancing that.
I'm gonna ask you to bring your microphone a little closer to your mouth.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, any questions or comments on IKF before we move on? Okay, the next is JJIBC, relations with booster groups. Any changes since first reading?
We clarified the language about the athletic director and booster board being in charge of those two pieces. And then the letter N is that they are, who's allowed to purchase equipment and pay for transportation.
Any questions or comments before we move on from this policy? Okay. Next is JLCD, administration of medication to students. Any changes since first reading?
I do not believe changes since first reading. This was clarifying the role and responsibilities as to be limited to the school, clarifying to the school nurse, and then there's the designated school personnel on letter G. So for G, we included this designated school personnel.
Any questions or comments before we move on from this policy? Okay. The next policy is IJJ, instructional and library media related selection. Any changes since first reading?
I don't believe there were any changes since first read. We had a lengthy conversation, but I haven't heard from anybody since first reading by email.
The next is IJJ-E, challenge of instructional materials form. Or wait, did I skip it?
Nope.
Okay, great. Any changes since first reading?
We didn't have any, except for upon me reading it now. I don't know if this is what we would do now, but we're using the language of concerns of instructional form rather than challenges. So if that could be a friendly amendment, so first we can still be on board to vote on them together with the form and the policy.
Okay, so changing
Challenge to concerns.
the title?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, any questions or comments about that? Okay. The next is policy BEDF, voting method. Any changes since first reading?
No.
Okay. Any questions or comments on that policy before we move forward? Okay. The next is JLCDA, medical marijuana in schools. Any changes since first reading?
No.
Any questions or comments on this? Okay. And then the final policy for second reading is JJI, Winthrop Public Schools philosophy of athletics. Any changes since first reading?
No changes. We had a discussion about its positioning and its sort of quasi descriptive versus policy, but we felt it was important to maintain what it says now for the philosophy of sports.
Okay, any questions or comments before we move on from this policy? All right, Tim, are you able to make a friendly amendment to the motion to change challenge to concerns on IJJ-E?
Yes.
Say a little louder.
Yes.
And Alicia, are you okay with that as well?
Yes, I am.
Okay, all those in favor? 5-0. Paul, can you turn off this? Thank you. So that is the extent of old business. New business, I will entertain a motion to approve the following policies for first reading. JLCDB, naloxone, and JS, suicide prevention, intervention, and response.
So moved.
Seconded. Okay. So, on JLCDB, the naloxone and Narcan policy, is there anything you'd like us to know before we go home and contact you with any changes or comments that we have?
Alicia? No, I don't think so. Did we?
This is a new policy that hasn't been in our book before.
Yeah, I think we thought it was an important policy to consider and discuss, and we're really looking forward to hearing what people have to say and for our next discussion.
I also checked at my most recent Kennebec Valley Superintendent's meeting to see how many other districts in the Kennebec Valley have this policy, and we were the only one that does not. I was very surprised by that.
And for those who are interested in this information, there is some legal reference related to this particular policy, and this is specific to how naloxone can or cannot be used on school property. And if anybody has any questions for Jeannie, who is the school nurse, she is on the Zoom. But if not, that's fine. You'll email? Okay. All right, and then policy JS, and this is a new policy that has been framed by NAMI, not MSMA, the suicide prevention and intervention and response. Anything you'd like us to know?
No, I think likewise we'd like to hear back from you. It is, we thought it was important that it was, or interesting or helpful, that it's NAMI is where we're getting the documentation and information from.
Okay. And this also does have some legal references related to it as well. Any further discussion or questions before we take a vote? Okay, all those in favor of first reading? Okay, 5-0, thank you. All right, the next order of business is a discussion about staffing.
So this was something that came up one of our last meetings. I think actually Tim brought it up, and so I brought it to the administrative team. I think there was first some discussion about special ed staffing, and then I felt like we're gonna have this conversation, we should probably look at it broader, because I personally thought there were some areas that we are really lacking in numbers and needed to consider some changes. And it feels like the right time to have this conversation because we'll be starting the budget process probably next month in November. We'll get into it in December, and then you guys will be dealing with it from January on. So I think we want to plant some seeds. Sue is on the Zoom, if she wants to talk about special ed in particular. As I looked at special ed, filling the vacancies would be the top priority. I think we're pretty well staffed, but I think it's about filling them. But Sue just joined us so she can weigh in.
Yeah, so actually what I would say, Jim, you're right on the mark. We have an agenda item tonight, 6.4, that we're going to be filling one of the positions that's been vacant, which I'm really excited about. We had last month on my agenda, I indicated that we were still looking for 2 educational technicians as well as transportation support staff. Our transportation support staff position was refilled this week. Fortunately, with the same person that was doing it previously, we made some decisions that allowed for her to come back. We interviewed one educational technician yesterday, and we have another interview tomorrow. And hopefully, we will fill both of those positions as well. And that would, I'm not saying it, but round out the staff. Or I will not say the F word that ends with ULL.
Thank you, Sue. Does anybody have any questions for Sue about the special ed staffing?
just question to your opinion. Would a behavior program at the grade school be effective or needed?
So it's a great question, Tim. We currently have what's called Growing Tree, and the Growing Tree program originally was built to be an autism program. If you remember back several years ago, there was the regional program, I think it was at Wayne, maybe, does that sound right? RAP, Wayne Regional Autism Program. That was many, many years ago. That program went away and Winthrop absorbed those students back into the district. In doing so, they created the Growing Tree program. Along the course of the path that we've been on, we've had a variety of students that have attended that don't necessarily need the autism program, but they need the behavioral supports that come with that type of program. So our Growing Tree program has sort of morphed into both a behavior program / autism program. And right now it's meeting the needs of students. But what I am seeing is as kids are coming in, there's a higher level of need coming in behaviorally, that regardless of the program in the school, I think the district could benefit multiple levels of that. But I'm not sure if it's fully supported yet.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Sue? Okay, Jim?
So I think Jay's certainly here, Lori's here, Jolene's here, if they want to talk about their buildings. So one that sort of sticks out in my mind that I guess, you should not be surprised to hear me say that it'll be a top priority for me in the budget process to make the Dean of Students positions at the middle school and high school full-time. Something I told you last year I wanted to do, where we're kind of, we're just transitioning, and that's kind of what we're hoping will happen. I think some of the things we're talking about, our dean at the high school is currently out and has been out all year. We're wishing her well and taking the time back, and Joe is new at the middle school, and I think growing every day in that role. But I think the middle school is the place where I have the most concerns. I don't want to speak for Lori or for Jay or for Jolene, but as I look at it, particularly with middle school being the area that I spent most of my career as a teacher and as a building principal, I think we are a minimum of 3 teachers short at the middle school. And what I mean by that is, if you look at our school and our numbers, and you look at the rest of the system, I really expect, and Lori and I talked briefly about this, and she certainly can speak for herself, but we should have we need at least one more math teacher. We only have 2 for 3 grades, and we need one more science person. We have 2 for 3 grades, and we need one more social studies person. Again, we have 2 for 3 grades. That's not, it's an absolute, but it certainly is in terms of keeping our sizes down as we're looking at the numbers that are coming up through. That's going to make sense, and Lori can type out the challenges now. But in addition to that, the last thing I want to throw out there is that the middle school really is a 4th position, and I don't know how much we can bite off in 1 year. But right now we share staff with the high school. That creates a real hardship, both for the high school and for the middle school. And it'd be nice to maybe look at the number of positions, but the one that I think is most common for middle schools, that working as well as we can together with the middle school and high school, we could use a person to do foreign language. We call it foreign language experience. A flex is what it's called in other places where I've been. That would allow us to offer that programs like that, art, music, visit, during the day, anytime. It fits into the schedule instead of really trying to fit it in, either first thing in the morning, which we also have I can't remember what Steve's program is called. Drama program. We have plenty of that at the middle school. But the class drama is, in the morning, and that's, again, a shared staff. The foreign language people are shared staff. Todd MacArthur comes up and does industrial arts. I don't know if that's our technical name for it. It is, good. Whew. And again, that's a shared staff, and I think the more you have shared staff, the more you tie the schedules in together. And just by the nature, you may not agree with this, but just by the nature of shared staff and all the places I've been, the high school kind of gets the first bite at the, and Jay's been great, in terms of sharing is caring and that type of thing, but it's really a challenge. So honestly, from my perspective, looking at it, and these guys can speak after, we're probably looking at the need for 4 positions at the middle school alone. Grade school, high school, Lori?
Can you come to a microphone? Yeah, either David or Joseph's fine.
Might as well, I've been doing it all night.
I know, David, thank you.
He's a very good sharer.
He is a good sharer. At the middle school, we definitely do need, especially in the content areas, I put in my board report in the process of looking at our schedule because we now have 75 8th graders, and our class sizes are 25 to 27. That is beyond contract. It's also not good for instructional practices. It's not good for our students and their learning needs. So this afternoon, we worked on that and how can we group students to best meet their needs as well as teachers. And we're shuffling some teachers to do some different teaching assignments. Again, we have to look at their certification. We have some teachers that are certified K-8, and then we have some teachers that are certified 7-12. So I have to be very careful when we're assigning teachers with their specialty and what they're doing. So we are being creative, we are looking at that, but science, social studies, mathematics definitely. This year, 7th grade does not get foreign language. We're not able to, wait a minute, no, 7th grade gets it, 6th grade does not get it this year because of the schedule. 8th grade is getting foreign language, and then our 7th grade gets it. But 6th is not getting it, unfortunately, this year because of that. 8th grade does not get general music because Mr. G comes up in the afternoon. So 8th grade Unified Arts are first period of the day because Mr. Desfoulias, Mr. MacArthur, and Ms. Betts come up from the high school during that time.
So is Mr. G at the high school for the rest of the day?
He's at the high school in the morning, and then he comes up to us at period 4.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Smale before she goes back to her seat? Okay.
And
Yep.
I'm happy to meet with you individually as well, or anybody who has a question. Well, that.
The last thing that you just said, can you just clarify, there's no music instruction
For 8th grade. They are able to do band and chorus because we schedule that during flex, the last period of the day. So they are able to participate that way, but they don't have general music. General music is for 6th and 7th grade.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Lori. Do you want to talk about the grade school and the high school?
I don't have anything to say about them.
I'm going to start with Jay. What do you have to say? Sharing and caring.
So you moved over.
Staying over here, David.
I see how it is.
I think my biggest pet peeve is the shared staff. Lori and I work really well together, and I appreciate her flexibility, and we've met a number of times to try to make things work, but I feel like it's always round peg, square hole. And in the instance of a lot of October where we have testing, we've had a lot of these really unique special events like the Supreme Court visiting where we have to sort of adapt and change because it's a huge educational opportunity for our students. But that affects the middle school and their schedule and the staffing, and it's coverage in both buildings. It puts staff in a really tough place. And I have met with a teacher who does have some concerns about the shared staffing and the timing, and I worry about retention of staff. And it's not just in some of the critical areas like language. They're all critical areas now, and to be able to find qualified, good staff and to keep them is, you know, those are two huge challenges, but they're very different. And I would hate to, I will bend over backwards, and I know Laura will too, to try to keep our staff here if they're running into those issues and feeling stressed about a shared situation. But it really puts us in a tough place, and I think Lori said this really well. It kind of puts our kids at a disservice, certainly, when we're sharing, you know, that many staff and that many kids don't have those same opportunities. So I think that's, again, my biggest gripe. And again, it's through the budget process and it costs money, but you know, that's kind of where I'm at.
Does anybody have any questions for Jay?
So, can I say one more thing?
You can come up here and say one more thing.
See how it is.
So, as you know, I actually am a parent of Winthrop students. My 4 daughters have gone through the school. So I've seen that. And when the oldest one went through the middle school, there were, every content area, every grade level was covered. So I've watched that as a Winthrop resident and things, and I've seen it decline. And I just saw the opportunities that were afforded the girls when they had a larger staff and not as much of the back and forth. And it was really positive. I mean, I chose to come back to Winthrop and wanted to be here to help. So I just think that we have a reputation of quality and high quality education and instruction, and I want to maintain that and I want to push it to the next level. So that's why I would ask for an increase in staff.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think I would, as a math teacher, I would encourage and recognize that, especially in the middle school, it's, I think, really important to have middle school teachers teaching math and science and having them one per grade, and that's just someplace that as a society is a really important foundational piece. So I think when we have these lacking in numbers and big class sizes and we're not able to meet our students' needs, I think it would be a good investment in our funds and such.
Thank you. Jolene?
I think not, but I certainly feel like we are in a different place in middle school and high school.
So I feel like we're in a really different place than the middle school and high school, and I feel like in the last few years we have increased support in different areas. I think Sue mentioned tonight about the something that she has coming up later, a position or whatever. I feel like the behavior area is a need in our building, and Maureen, our new guidance person, is helping and has seamlessly stepped in to help us with that kind of support. What I would say though, as Jim talked about his career as a middle school teacher, half of my career has been at middle school also. And middle school is a very, very tricky age in a lot of different ways. And not just anyone wants to be a middle school teacher. And that's, when you tell people you're a middle school teacher, they're like, oh, bless you. That's the first response you get. But middle school teachers love what they do, and they're there because they fit there. But the middle school experience I had as a teacher for 13 years was a school where there were 3 teams. We only had 2 grade levels, but 3 teams, and there were 3 complete teams. Every subject matter had its own expert teacher. And the numbers that Lori speaks to, we were fortunate not to have those numbers, which makes a huge difference for the impact that an adult can have on a small group of children when you focus on just your homeroom, your group, which however it's addressed. So having a lot of middle school experience, would strongly encourage us to look at that and to look at the numbers. At the grade school, we're very fortunate. Most of our numbers are right where I believe they should be, but we're very fortunate. They're like 15, 16. The largest group we have is 18. That's like, oh my gosh, like we couldn't ask for it to be any better for our children here in Winthrop at the grade school. But to have those high numbers, I just really, like my experience as a middle school person, would strongly encourage us to look at that.
Yeah, I think something that gets underestimated is that when you're dealing with middle school kids who are figuring out the drama of their life and their hormones and their personality and their senses of humor in a different way than they ever had before, adding all of that stuff into a room of now let's try to cram some knowledge into your head, the bigger the group, the significantly harder it is to do that. And I think that's taken for granted sometimes by folks who haven't worked with those populations before and aren't aware of just how fraught that group of kids can be. So that's the one thing that I have been hearing across when I'm visiting the schools too, is everybody saying we need smaller classes at the middle school. And I think having a class of 20, 25 is just unreasonable for this age group, absolutely. Thank you. Any other questions for Jolene before she really, really sits down? No, you're good, thank you. Anything else, Jim, before we move on?
No, I think we're all set.
Okay. Did that answer all of your questions, Tim? Okay, great. And did the CATSI discussion answer all of your questions? Okay. The next thing that we're going to talk about is the board member self-evaluation process. This is governed by policy BBAB. Generally, the policy says that we should be having a self-evaluation as a special public meeting in October. That's just not something that we were able to do this year, so we're looking at November. So we need to figure out what that date is going to be. It can't be one of our regular meetings, it has to be an off week. That's the only thing that can happen during that meeting, so we'll open, we'll have the self-evaluation, and then we'll close. And it will happen in the APR. No, in the small conference room, thank you. So in policy BBAE, there are A through M worth of things that we need to evaluate ourselves on. Committee visioning, strategic planning and long-range planning skills and process, committee meeting and management, conduct and decision-making processes, policy development and implementation, fiscal oversight and resource allocation, oversight of curriculum and instruction, monitoring of student achievement, committee subcommittee structure, responsibilities and processes, committee member development, new committee member orientation, committee superintendent relations, committee to community relations and communications, committee relations with the media, and committee legislative involvement and advocacy. And as I'm reading this, I'm realizing this needs to come for some evaluation to change from committee to board. So last year, for the two of you who weren't on the board, I can show you the master copy kind of from here, but it's filled with stuff. I had to delete it from my stuff because I ran out of space, so I'll have to retype whatever we do. But what it has is it's broken down into 3 sections. Committee members is part 1, part 2 is in-depth comments with questions, and then part 3 is committee meeting observations. So each one of those, as it was last year, is strongly agree, agree, disagree, and strongly disagree. What I was thinking about as I was thinking about how we're going to do this is that I'd like to add a 5th of neither agree nor disagree as an option, because there are some times where you just will have no real opinion necessarily. What I would ask is that if you are disagreeing or strongly disagreeing and that becomes a criticism, right? So there are some places where disagree and strongly disagree makes sense, but if it's a criticism, I would ask that you definitely write comments so that we can work on how we can improve that. If it's an agree or a strongly agree or even a neither agree or disagree, comments if you'd like to add them. But if it's just a, yay, we did a great job, feel free to add it, but you don't have to. But it, in a way to be able to move the board into any kind of progress. So to have those comments written down would be really useful. So the things that we had on last year's evaluation in part one for committee members. So committee members know how to put an item on the meeting agenda, communicate with each other between meetings as needed, have visited schools as a committee member, not necessarily as a full group, but as your job as a committee member, know the process for responding to community or employee complaints, understand the policy regarding communication with the media, are properly using email, are prepared for meetings, know how to request information about an agenda item, participate in discussions, debates, and voting, know how to respond to inquiries about executive sessions, elect officers with the best interests of the district and town in mind, are active on subcommittees, receive an in-depth orientation when they first join the committee, conduct a committee self-evaluation, express opinions about other board members' performance or behaviors in an appropriate manner, behave with respect and civility toward other committee members, district employees, and town residents, request needed information not routinely provided by district administration as needed, establish and review the district's vision, mission, and annual goals, develop and adopt the district budget, developed and/or review district policy, evaluate the superintendent, communicate opinions about the superintendent's performance outside of the evaluation process, and hire personnel other than the superintendent. And then there are some in-depth, long-form questions. What issues are presenting obstacles to governing as a cohesive team, if there are any? Are there any recent actions, behaviors, or issues that have occurred which would be helpful for members of the committee to openly discuss? Do any members communicate openly and share information with all members? If not, what do you perceive are the obstacles to open communication? When there's a conflict among committee members, is the committee able to resolve it satisfactorily? And if not, please describe the barriers to conflict resolution. And what would you identify as the strengths of the committee? So those are all just word answers, not a check answer. And then meeting observations. Do the committee members speak loudly and clearly enough that everybody present can hear them? Is it conducted in a business-like manner and follow acceptable parliamentary procedures and rules? Does the chair take charge of the meeting and keep the meeting under control? Do the members treat school personnel and each other politely and with respect during the meeting? Are the appropriate school personnel present at the meeting to supply information for agenda items? Is the location and setting of the meeting comfortable and conducive to getting business done with adequate room for the public and media? Is a conscious effort made to make the public feel welcome at committee meetings, providing them copies of the agendas and things like that? Is the policy for public participation explained at each meeting by the chair and followed to maintain order? Does the meeting start on time and end within a reasonable time? Are committee members familiar with the materials provided to them prior to the meeting? Is the agenda received by committee members within sufficient time for them to study and review it prior to the meeting? Is it accompanied by an appropriate amount of rationale or data? Are appropriate procedures in place to permit any members to add items to the agenda? And if new issues surface at the meeting, is the superintendent given sufficient time to research those issues so the committee is not forced to make a decision on the spot? So what I would like to do is retype this and get it to you all for a quick review and see if there's anything that you think should be added or removed, and then send you the full form to be completed and return to me before our special meeting so that I can get it all on a single master copy to share out. Does anybody have any objection to that? I know I just said a whole lot of information. Okay, so we do need to set a meeting date. The time would be the same at 6 o'clock. So looking at November, we have the 8th and technically the 22nd and the 29th. With that said, there's no school on the 22nd because the next day is Thanksgiving, so I don't know that that's a great opportunity. And I will not be in the state on the 29th, so that kind of just leaves the 8th. Unless people want to come in on the day before Thanksgiving. Okay. So does everybody have the ability to be here for 6 o'clock on the 8th? I'll double check. Okay. All right, I will put that in email to you folks as well so that you can double check that. And tentatively, we will look at the 8th at 6 o'clock. You two, Joseph and David, do not need to participate in this. You are welcome to if you want to. If you choose not to, you do not have to be at that meeting. Okay. Otherwise, for the rest of the members, this is a mandatory participation as far as this is concerned. If you're not able to be at the meeting, but you're able to give the feedback, then I think that we can make that work. And if you're able to be here by Zoom and not in person because of your other stuff going on, I think that that's probably fine too. As I said, this is a public meeting, so people are welcome to come and sit in the audience or join us by Zoom to watch the self-evaluation happen. It's not generally an opportunity for the community to comment on it. If they want to bring those comments to the next meeting in public comment section, they can, but that's not the purpose of the meeting. So that's it for me for that part of this agenda. And move on to the final part of new business, which is I will entertain a motion to elect Kimberly Gurney as the District Behavior Interventionist as recommended by the Superintendent of Schools.
So moved.
Seconded. Okay, any discussion?
It is on Zoom, and so is Sue.
Okay, Sue.
Hey, so I'm super excited. The team met with Kim, gosh, it feels like forever ago, but a couple weeks back. Kim is coming from RSU 9, so our neighbors in Mount Blue. She is currently the adaptive skills teacher there. She has worked district-wide to train staff on behavior strategies, de-escalation techniques, restraint seclusion laws. She's currently pursuing her master's degree with a focus on special education and behavioral interventions. We're very, very excited to have her join the team. And it was funny because when we were conducting our interview, I don't even think Kim was down the hall, and they were asking me to chase after her and tell her they wanted her to start today. So they were really, really excited about Kim and the potential that she can bring to Winthrop.
Does anybody have any questions for Sue or Kim? Kim is on the Zoom tonight. Hi, Kim.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm also very, very excited to start in Winthrop. It does seem like forever ago, but I'm just super excited, very excited by the enthusiasm and by the energy of the district, and just really hope that I can bring some energy myself.
Thank you, Kim. Any questions or comments before we take a vote? All right, all those in favor? 5-0. Welcome to the team, Kim. All right. Are there any additions to the future agendas by school board members? Joseph and David, is there anything that you think that needs to come before us? Okay. Any school board comments? We'll start with you, Catherine.
Not today, thank you.
Okay, Tim? Nope. Ivy?
Yes.
I had to write it down. I wanted to thank Jolene and her staff for the quick implementation of a school bus safety plan at the grade school. We're very lucky to have such dedication that extends beyond our school walls. Thank you. I also had the privilege of attending the National Honor Society ceremony this morning, and just want to congratulate again all the inductees: Zion, Carolyn, Catherine, Lauren, Annabeth, Christopher, Abigail, Elizabeth, and Madeline. Congratulations. I also want to say a big thank you to Dr. Hausenhoff for taking a day off of work to speak, Ms. Shaw, Mr. Dufour, and all the others for their hard work and dedication. It was a beautiful ceremony.
Thank you, Ivy. Alicia? No. Okay. David?
Joseph first.
No.
Okay.
Use that microphone, sir.
Well, sorry about that. So we had homecoming last week, wonderful Spirit Week as well. A lot of students were into it this year. The freshman class did very good job adapting to that. I've not seen that before. Pep rally was amazing on Friday. It was early in the morning, but got at least my blood pumping ready for the rest of the day. And for the first time ever, my grade, the seniors, lead in March Madness points.
Ooh.
And we hope to keep it. And that is it for me.
Thank you, David. Joseph?
They won't be in the league for long.
Those are probably
Keep trying.
I just want to say how good of an experience it was when the Supreme Court of Maine came to Winthrop High School, and how educational and influential a lot of students found that.
Thank you. I don't have anything. I think I talked myself down earlier. All right, there is no executive session tonight, so without objection, I will declare the meeting adjourned at 7:41.